Hey folks, welcome to the Jake and John show. This is one of your hosts, John. I'm here with my brother Jake, the other host.
What's up, everybody?
And we're going to talk about some technological shit today. The first thing we're going to get into is 3D printing, and then I want to talk about something else too, the VR goggles. But yeah, let's get into that. Oh, before I forget, this is going to be episode 10.5, we'll call it. We did do a podcast last week, but both of us were just worn out and we weren't really feeling it. And it's not something that we want to put out. We'll leave it on the back burner, maybe someday archive it, but we're not going to put that one out right now. So we're just starting over. So anyway, you got a 3D printer now. I saw the little video you sent me of it, and it's fucking awesome. So tell me about that. First of all, where did you get that, or did you actually make it?
Yeah, I ended up going with a kind of a pre-built model. So there's a site called RepRap out there, and it's basically a bunch of plans and for open source 3D printers, which is really cool. And if you're not familiar with open source, that basically means that they're big collaborative projects. You know, tons of people work on it, and it's all free. So it's available to anybody to, you know, the plans to build these things. Well, that was my first plan. I was gonna get basically a kind of a kit that had most of the parts already, and then I was gonna build the thing based on those plans. But as I was looking through it, I ended up finding that there was some pretty nice, like almost ready to print type models. And the one I got is what's it called? The Monoprice. I think it's called the Maker Deluxe. And so basically with that one, all I had to do was just bolt the thing together and like level the bed and then start printing. So it's badass, man. I had that thing together pretty quick. And then, I had, you know, my first 3D model printing probably inside of like 30 minutes of actually getting the thing put together.
That's what I wanted to ask you about. So I saw the two models you sent me. It was like, I think it was an elephant and a butterfly, right?
Yeah.
So does the software come with it? Is it sample software, or do you just get all that shit online for what you want to print out?
So there's a few things. So those two particular models, so it came with a SD card with some sample models on it. So the two you saw, those are the samples. So they, you know, just came with it. But yeah, so there's a few different things. There's a website called Thingiverse, I think, and it's made by, I think the MakerBot folks are the ones that maintain that site, but it's just like this huge repository of 3D models that people have made. And there's everything from like pegboard shit to like make custom stuff for your tools, or there's Halloween stuff. There's like modifications you can or pieces you can use to make modifications to your 3D printer. So that's kind of one of the cool things too, is these are like machines that can almost replicate themselves. Like you can build the vast majority of the parts, structural parts for 3D printers with the 3D printer, which is pretty cool. So it's kind of like almost like this first iteration of a self-duplicating machine. But yeah, on that site there's tons of stuff, and then there's also software out there, you know, free software where you can design your own 3D models. Now I'm not quite there yet. I'm still going to be kind of messing with the kind of pre-made models, just figuring it all out, because there's some learning curve on actually creating the 3D models yourself. Oh, another thing that they have, there's such a thing as a 3D scanner, and I don't know a whole ton about this yet, but it's basically this device. You set like an object on it, and it goes around the whole object and then creates a 3D model of it for you. And then you can slice it up from there and kind of figure out what you want to do. So yeah, man, there's a ton of stuff you can do with these things. It's really cool.
What is the material? It has to be some type of epoxy or resin, right? Does it say on the box what it is?
Yeah, well, actually they're plastics. So you can do, so the printer I got is capable of printing with two types of plastics. One is called PLA, and I can't remember exactly what that stands for, but it's a plastic that it melts at a fairly low temperature and is able, so it's like a big spool of this plastic, and you just feed it in there. And you can do that, or I think mine supports also ABS plastic, which is, you may be familiar with ABS because there's like all kinds of stuff is made out of it. So it melts at like a much higher temperature, and it's a lot stronger, but it's also harder to print with. You have to do a lot more tinkering to kind of get it going. But there's several other materials you can print as well. There's like nylon, and there's a bamboo kind of synthetic, some kind of synthetic blend made with bamboo. And as far as I know, you can print with that, and you can actually like sand it and stain it, I've heard. I'm still looking into all that.
That's fucking cool. So the little video that or it might have been a picture that you sent me, one of the two. I see that it looks like there's sharp edges on there. Is that the case, or is it possible to print something out that is rounded off that's where it's smooth to the touch?
Yeah. Actually, you can print a lot very smooth. I'll actually grab the models there in the car, I think, later and show them to you. But yeah, you can print things that are very smooth. Some of the 3D models you get they're kind of like polygons, like they have, it looks kind of like a video game graphics from, a few years ago. But yeah, there's definitely smooth models, and you can get it looking pretty good. I mean, and then so when you print these out, the way it prints is it's just like this very, very, very fine stream of plastic that comes out of the extruder. So you can tell there's like kind of little lines where it prints, just, where the plastic has come out of the extruder. But people have developed some techniques for dealing with that. Like if you wanted to smooth it out completely, they do they take acetone and put it in a jar or whatever kind of container and then heat it and kind of set the model in there on a little base. And then the acetone fumes actually just melt the plastic just enough to give you that smooth surface.
I see. So obviously I think where I'm going with this is, would you, in the current state from what you know of it, would it be safe to insert an object anally or vaginally without risk of internal injury?
I figure it would be probably no worse than any other object, I guess. I don't know. I've never stuck an object in, so I'm going purely off instinct here.
Right. So, of course, what I'm asking about is, we talked about this before a little bit before you even bought the printer, but I talked about it and you listened, let's be clear on that, is to develop the software, Dildos on Demand, so that you create this software and you have hundreds of designs of dildos, butt plugs, cock rings, anything that you can reasonably make with a 3D printer and do a one-time charge or, a monthly subscription, something like that. But I don't even know if that would work, because right now you can probably go online and find tons of free dildo schematics, right?
Yeah, I don't think getting a model of one would be that hard. I've actually never seen one, believe it or not. I've not looked, but it would not shock me at all if things like that existed.
Yeah, well, I don't know. I think it's a great idea, and I haven't looked on Google. I probably should, because who knows? Somebody probably already has a fucking copyright on that Dildos on Demand, right? But that 3D printer looks fucking badass. And you said it was, roughly around $300?
Yeah, it's right around $300. So it's pretty affordable to get into. And they've really progressed a lot in the past few years. I know I had a buddy that had one probably, I don't know, maybe 3 years ago or so. And it was pretty good then. But you can just tell that, like, the quality of the prints, even with the lower cost models, are so much higher today. I mean, this is something that has had so much work put into it that it's just amazing what you can get for so little money. It's really cool that they have open source designs too, because people are continuously working to find cheaper ways to do things and cheaper ways to source components, get things out of China or whatever it is. So yeah, every time you check, I mean, I think when I last looked at it was maybe about 2 years ago. I was kind of considering getting one, and it looked up, I think at the time about the cheapest you could get into it was about $500. So just in a couple of years, you're already looking at a $200 difference and a much higher quality printer.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, in a sense, as far as the average consumer is concerned, it's still in its infancy, but at some point, I think it's going to be common where every single person has one in their home, because you can print out plates and Tupperware and little small tools that you might need to use around the house, little toys, all kinds of shit. But the last thing I wanted to ask you about that is how big is that thing?
So the one I have is, I mean, it's not that big. It's probably, I don't know, maybe like 2.5 feet by 2.5 feet. I mean, something like that. So the actual print surface is like 8 inches by 8 inches, and it's maybe I can't remember what the height is, the max height you can print, but maybe like 7 inches or something like that. So the thing's not huge for what it is, but it does take up a little room. It's bigger than like your standard paper computer printer, but it's not that bad. I mean, for the size, but it depends on what you get, because you can get 3D printers that are large. I've actually heard and read a little bit about people that are, using it with like mud and stuff to build houses, like giant. They just bring the whole thing in and like build a house. And I think that's probably an application we'll see a lot more in the future, especially in like, really poor, like third world countries. If they could just drag a device out, man, and like crank out these like dome homes or something like that real quick, that would be, there's so many like awesome applications. Oh yeah. One other thing I was going to tell you about that I saw. So a while back, I saw that this guy had printed a prosthetic hand for a kid. And I want to do some more looking into this to see if there's like a way to like build some of this stuff and donate it or something. But this guy made a prosthetic that I think was received well and it was fairly useful, and it cost just dollars compared to something, like a regular prosthetic, which could cost thousands and thousands of dollars. So there's lots of practical applications and ways that you can just help people almost through charity by making some of these things. So I don't know, man, there's just like this huge culture around. I know I'm jumping all over the place, but there's all kinds of cool stuff that can be done. And I'm like super excited about it. I've just started messing with it, but I can see this being a hobby that I'm going to be probably involved with for quite some time.
I'm sure, man. I think the 3D printer is something that will never go away and will only continuously advance to the, I think I read this, and it has something to do with 3D printing organs and shit like that, scanning them and then printing them out with organic material. And I think that at some point that's a goal. That they may even be able to do it with certain things. I can't remember. But and also, did you see that they're 3D printing a life-size Winterfell from Game of Thrones in Russia?
No, I have not seen that.
Yeah, I read the article and I'm thinking, I don't know, that's a pretty big fucking task. It's going to be expensive as shit for one thing. So it might be one of those bullshit articles. Sometimes it's hard to tell. It looked legit, but
yeah,
that would be fucking awesome. But, oh yeah, so on Saturday, I went and bought the Samsung S7 Edge, the new phone, because I had the iPhone, I think it was the first iPhone 5. That technology's, 5 years old probably?
Yeah.
And it was time to get a fucking new one. But about a year and a half ago, our cousin was showing me the technology with the virtual reality. And I think it's called Samsung VR, and there might be another word after it. But anyway, so he was showing it to me back then, and I was like, man, this is really fucking cool, but it looks a little blurry. The resolution is a little low on it. And he was telling me, well, the idea is, the hype behind it is when the next series of phones starts to come out and the resolution is basically doubled, that it's going to be way cooler to look at it. And so I was like, cool, man. But he showed me some of the games on there, and he showed me a porn movie on there and stuff. And I was like, okay, this is pretty cool. I can see the porn thing taking off and being huge. It's gonna take over the world. If they can have affordable goggles and it's clear and crisp, it's gonna take over for sure, because it's so immersive.
I was just thinking that like it would be almost a fucking horror movie, like some dude like blowing a load on your face. Yeah. You can't fucking get away from it. Yeah,
that'd be a good way to troll somebody. Yeah, but yeah, I looked at all that shit and I was like, "This is fucking cool, man." So I picked up the goggles. They're only $100, and I got home, was excited as fuck, and I put all the shit on there, the software, and I was reading the reviews for the newest software, and they had a bunch of 1 stars, and everybody's like, "Do not fucking install this." I'm like, "All right, I'm gonna listen. I'm not gonna install it." So I used I think it's the first software from 2 years ago or whenever it came out, and it has all the samples on there, and it was the same ones that our cousin had showed to me, and I was like, man, this is still badass, but it's not crisp enough. It's a little blurry.
So let me ask you a little bit about, I haven't actually seen that one. The only one I've ever messed with is the Google Cardboard. Are you familiar with that one, where it's like this cardboard viewer and you pop your phone in there? Is this kind of the same deal where you're using your phone screen, you just pop it in there and...
Yeah, it's the same thing. Yeah, but you have the goggles have pads on them and a strap and
yeah, just much more comfortable, I'm sure.
Yeah, and then on the right side of it, there's a touch pad and some kind of back button, I think it's a back button that's on top of it, and it works well. You can hook a controller up to it, and I hooked up a high quality headset. There's noise canceling. It's made for the Xbox, but it's not the wireless one, so I was able to hook it into my phone, and so I hooked that up at the same time.
So you got the kind of like the 3D audio with it too.
Yeah, and so I watched Jurassic Park. It's a sample. It's not a game or a movie per se. It's like a 2 or 3 minute long video that shows you capabilities and where the technology's going. And you're sitting here in this forest, and to your left you can see the classic Jurassic Park Jeep. And then in front of you is a big-ass fucking dinosaur. Whatever the leaf eater is that has 4 legs and the fucking huge neck. What is that one called?
A brontosaurus or something like that?
Brontosaurus, stegosaurus. Yeah, probably brontosaurus. I think that's what it is. But you sit there and you watch it, and it just moves around for a second, and it's breathing. And it's funny because when it's breathing, as you can see its butthole. So I thought it was strange because it looks kind of real, like the movie, right? And
So you saw a real dinosaur butthole.
yeah, like his butthole is kind of pulsating. I just thought that was a weird detail, but you can go the Ken doll route with that for that, But anyway, so it stands up and it starts to look around and it walks towards you and it gets it right up in your face and it's breathing and shit and it's really cool. But like I said, it's just there's something that's blurry. The focus button on it only helps so much, and I don't know if it's the quality of the goggles or if they just haven't quite figured it out yet, but it was a little disappointing.
So I know like with my Google Cardboard, the way it works, because of the type of lenses they use, the image looks, I don't want to say like fish-eyed. That's not really true, but it's kind of like it gets distorted a little bit as it goes out. Like it seems like it's pretty crisp in the center, but then as you get toward the edges, the way the picture look kind of changes. Like it's kind of like the aspect ratio is a little bit off or something like that. Does it look like that with those? Yeah,
that's what it is wherever your eyes are centered or what you're directly looking at, it seems to look pretty good. But anything that's out of that direct area, it starts to blur, or you might see a little bit of double action occasionally.
Okay.
And it can get annoying really fucking fast. But I haven't downloaded any of the games yet. I did play one of our cousins' games, some kind of dungeon ghost game or something like that.
Yeah, it seems like I've seen some of the games out there, and I haven't played one yet, but it seems like that some of the like kind of horror games would be cool where you're like, maybe going through an old, like a haunted house or something like that. It seems like the possibility of things jumping out around corners and stuff is very good with that, where it could be kind of shocking.
Oh, for sure.
Well, I've also heard, actually now I'm thinking about it, people have talked about it's kind of like simulating like an IMAX theater too. I don't know if these phone versions are really going to do that, but I know they've talked about with the Oculus where you can kind of sit down and put this thing on, and it's like you're at the IMAX. You're looking at this just giant HD screen, but you hear people talk about this is the future. So I'm picturing this future where, like, say you're going to watch a movie as a family. You have like 4 people sitting on the couch, like not being able to see each other, just wearing these things. And, I don't know. There's some kind of strange cultural things around that too. I'm kind of waiting to see how that pans out.
Well, I think that if it's not already a thing, it probably will be, where you can sync your phones somehow, and then if you look over in the theater, you'll see their avatar next to you eating popcorn or something like that. You know what I mean? Kind of like the Wii, where you choose your little guy and you make them and you try to make them look like you and all that.
I have to have a thing. Yeah, you make like a texture of yourself to apply to this thing.
Yeah, but yeah, as I said, it's cool, and I'm glad that I'm still reading about it and still learning, and it's in the beginning stages. It's something that's going to be exciting, because when they finally figure it out the right way and they make it affordable, it's going to take off. It's going to be porno and it's going to be video games. Those two things are going to fucking dominate, because you can watch a movie on there. There's a little app, and it puts you in a movie theater, and it looks like you're in a movie theater, but it's not the fucking same. It's not. I mean, because when you look around, everything's in 3D, but when you look around, you just see the walls in the theater. It's not like you're in the movie. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. So, the spatial stuff is kind of weird. When you put it on, do you get dizzy, or not dizzy, but like kind of disoriented, like your equilibrium's off a little bit?
I didn't have any sense like that, but after about 20 to 30 minutes, I had a slight headache, just very light, and then after I took it off, like 15 minutes later, I was fine. But that I can see that being an issue too, because I don't know if it has to do with a state of mind or your genetics or what, because some people can wear them for hours and hours and they don't have any kind of problem. But if you want to use that, the ideal thing to do is you want to be in a swivel chair and then have the wireless remote in your hands, or a wireless keyboard if you're playing a game that can do that. That's the best way to do it. So if you're just sitting on a couch, you definitely don't just want to sit in a fucking couch, because I'm sitting on the couch and I'm trying to look to my left behind me, and I'm trying to fucking turn my head like the Exorcist to see these whales coming past me and all these dolphins and shit. And it fucking made me mad, because I was uncomfortable and I was trying to enjoy myself. So the next time I try to go on one of those ocean adventures, I'm going to use the swivel chair.
Well, I didn't even think about that, because you actually do have that 360 degree field of view. And if what your body, I mean, it's weird because it's not a way that we look at things normally, but I guess you can easily just like kind of turn around in real life or whatever. So, but yeah, I wouldn't want to be standing up, walking around or turning around wearing that thing. Cause I had a game that I'd bought, and it was something silly. It was like it it was like a World War II dogfighting game or something like that. And it actually looked, and it was pretty cool. It was pretty fun, but it moved pretty quick. So I would notice when I was looking around, I would get kind of like disoriented a little bit, and it was just kind of uncomfortable. Maybe that goes away with a little bit of time, but it almost immediately was like, man, if I was really playing this much, it would probably make me sick after a few minutes.
Oh, yeah, of course, yeah, it would make me sick. I know that. But I think that for a lot of games, the best thing to do is to use a little bit less than 180 degrees so that you don't have to fucking swivel around everywhere, but you can still look up and down. They need, in my opinion, for games, they should lower, or at least make it an option where you can lower the field of visibility and it just kind of shuts off or fades at some point, so you're not so stressed out trying to, like if you were playing World of Warcraft, and you're an elf or whatever running around and, somebody fucking throws a snowball at you, you got to fucking swivel around in your chair or turn around to look at him. You can't see him, whereas with a mouse, or the keyboard, you can just turn around instantly.
Right, yeah.
So I see it taking off and being huge, especially in the MMORPG market, but there just has to be an easier way to turn and to look around, or to find a way to make the mouse work and keyboard work really fucking well with it. Simplify it so there's not so many buttons, so you don't have to try to look down. I don't know.
Yeah, it seems like there's going to be a delicate balance between, like, because a modern first-person shooter, they move so quickly. Like, you can jump around immediately. I mean, you can make faster movements with your in-game head than you can in real life. So, I think once you immerse yourself in virtual reality, you have to kind of find that delicate balance, because you will make yourself nauseous if you're doing. Can you imagine playing like Quake Arena in that or something? Like, to me, that just sounds like terrible. Like, I would be puking from the just the speed of movement and it twisting, because there's no way that you could possibly do that by having it tracking your head and moving around. That you wouldn't even be able to play the game.
I think something interesting that's going to happen with all this is it's going to, again, the porno and the virtual reality type of games. Well, I guess they're all virtual reality, but what I mean is, what's the name of that game? The Sims.
Yeah.
Where if you have a Sims type of game, is what it's going to do to employment rates and to marriages and relationships, even with parents and children. When the technology gets so good, people just fucking stay in their room all day.
Well, what's weird, and I've heard people talk about, especially about the Oculus. I guess only because it's probably one of the better known and I guess maybe better quality ones. I haven't really seen it, but I've heard people say, maybe in jest, but they're like, man, if this thing's great enough, I'll just put this thing on and kind of never check out. You know what I mean? And to me, that's crazy. So if you, I don't know, I don't know if it's my age or if it's just, I mean, I know it's weird for sure, but I can't imagine that being me. I can't, like, I can see kind of putting it on, maybe playing a game or something, but I can't see a world where, I'm sitting around like that movie WALL-E, like just like a fucking fat ass and floating around in some chair with an Oculus Rift on. I don't know, man. To me, that kind of stuff gets kind of weird. Like you're plugged into the Matrix or something. Nothing's real anyming.
There was a movie, and I believe it's a Bruce Willis movie, and it's along those lines. These people, they lay in these. It kind of looks like a tanning bed, maybe, but a little bit more sophisticated than that. It's all encompassing, and once you lay in there and you're hooked up to it, I think it feeds you and hydrates you, but you're also in this other world, and it's connected to your brain in such a way that you're there, and you can choose what you look like and where you want to go. And if you have sex, it feels like sex because it's hooked into your brain, your neurons, and all that shit. And I don't know, man. It's going to be a while, but it's coming. That is going to happen.
Yeah, that's weird, man. And I know you keep bringing up the porn part, and you think about how fucking dorky that shit is. Like, if you're thinking about it really, like if you're camped out in your room fucking naked wearing this mask jerking off, like, what the fuck are you doing? Like, I think everybody needs to, like, take a moment of pause, dude, and think about just how fucking crazy that is. Like, what if you fucking die like that or something?
The paramedics come in and find you like that. But yeah, it's going to happen, dude. And I think once they get the technology down so much that people, not everybody, obviously, but a lot of people are going to stop fucking. If you can choose what you look like and you're fucking somebody in the game or the world, whatever you want to call it, and it's some 70-year-old guy, but he looks like a 25-year-old porn star, and you're fucking that guy, but you're fucking his avatar, right? But you don't even know about it. But I think that's what's going to happen. It's going to start ruining people's lives.
Yeah, as much as I love technology, that's a little too meta for me. I don't know. I guess like I'm interested in it to some extent, but I can't ever see at least for me, a point where it starts to replace reality. And I think that's where like a lot of people are looking, because you hear people talk about that a lot, which is kind of strange to me, but I just can't see jumping on that bandwagon, or I don't know. I don't think it's going to get to a point anytime soon where it's so real that, you want to be there all the time. I almost kind of hope it doesn't, just because that starts getting really weird to me, man. You just plug into this weird matrix and kind of live there. I think it's cool if you can jump in and kind of experience things. Like, to me, like, say you were doing like a tour of a pyramid or something like that, to me sounds really cool. Like, if it was like the idea of some kind of documentaries or something on there where it's like 3D virtual tours or something like that sounds cool to me. I'm just trying to think of places, but like you were saying, like getting into some weird like game of The Sims where that's where you live. That's, I don't know. To me, that's just so strange. I can't wrap my head around it.
Yeah, I'd be more interested in going to Mars or
yeah. Like, how cool is that? Or like, touring the space station, or just things that would be very difficult to do in real life, or impossible in cases of like the space station and stuff like that, or Mars. But yeah, I think that's to me that's where the most excitement is being able to see things that you just wouldn't normally wouldn't be possible, and see it in a really 3D and cool way that was fully immersive.
That's one of the cool things that comes with the free app or whatever the fuck it is that comes with it. But you're in a boat, and I think you're in Thailand, and you're going down this river, and you can see all the people in their bamboo huts, and they're all looking at you, and you can turn around and look behind you and shit. And then you end up in this hut, and you're eating dinner with, I don't know what to call them, a traditional family there, where everybody's sitting on the floor and laughing and eating off of, I don't know what they are, leaves or some shit, eating rice and chicken, but they look happy as fuck. And you're in the room with them, and it's almost like that's your little secret family. You're in this little hut with them, and it's pretty fucking cool. But yeah, I would like to use it to go to space more than anything. Any type of really good footage they can pick up with satellites or whatever the fuck, the rover, and go there. Like, what's the name of that movie? Fucking Total Recall. Remember that?
Yeah.
Because it's sort of the same thing, right?
Yeah.
You go on a fantasy vacation for 2 weeks and come back and fucking kill everybody. But
well, another place that would be cool is in a amusement park ride. Like, if you could take something and to simulate being in like a what do they call those capsules that they come back from the space station on, a Sawyer's capsule, something like that. It would be cool if you could kind of simulate that. Like, you put this thing on where visually it looks like you're inside this capsule, because they're really small and compact, and then they go through all kinds of like harsh environments, and going through the atmosphere and all this. It would be cool to like get in this ride and have like this kind of this visual full immersion, and also kind of experience the feel of it. You could do a lot with like vibration and shaking and things like that. I think there's a lot of cool stuff that can be done in kind of the almost amusement park ride area.
Yeah, if they can get the image quality right, because I remember going to I think it's the Houston, what the fuck's it called, National Science Museum or something.
You know what I'm talking about. Science Museum.
Natural Science Museum, yeah. And which they haven't necessarily updated very much. That was when I was 11, and I went there again this summer. And there's some new shit there, but it's still kind of the same. The not an auditorium. What's it called when you look at spaceship?
Planetarium.
Planetarium, yeah. It looked good, but they can do better. You know what I'm saying? But they have some type of IMAX theater there or around there.
Yeah.
And even back then, when I was 11, we went in there to watch that. And one of the first things is you're on a helicopter, and then you come over this waterfall. And as you do, the helicopter starts to go down. And when it did, it gives you that sinking feeling where your balls are kind of floating. You know what I'm saying? And so if the visual is strong enough and the camera work is good enough, I think your brain will create that for you.
Yeah.
So that you don't necessarily need extra sensation. You could build something or make something, but it would cost a fucking
Well, that's
shit.
true, because now I think about it, because I went and saw... it was one of the Batmans. We might have been together. I can't remember. But it was in one of the big IMAX theaters or whatever they call it now. I can remember just the intro scene where it's kind of panning over Gotham City. I can remember even thinking then, just because of the size of the screen and the full immersion, that it was making me kind of like, woozy a little bit just from that. So yeah, you're right. It may not even take that much except for just kind of like visual stimulation to kind of give you those feelings of being there.
Yeah, I think your brain, the chemicals or however the fuck that works, will start going off if it's done well enough. But yeah, I'm actually gonna play with those VR goggles tonight when I get home, if I get home early enough.
How much did the VR goggles cost?
It was like $100, with a little bit of tax on it. That was it. It's easy to assemble. It looks and feels pretty high quality for $100. I mean, it's all you can ask for, really.
Does it have a way to manipulate things on the phone? Can you like push buttons or anything to kind of interact with things that are like menus or anything like that?
Yeah, the way it works is just picture a mouse pointer. It's a little circle or ball. And wherever you look, your center focus is where it starts, and then wherever you look, it goes. And so you click on a menu button on the right side of the screen. You don't click on it; you look at it and center it on there. Mm-hmm. And then on the side of the headset, you push the little touchpad button, and it'll click or select whatever it is that you're on.
And just the way that it's made, you can wear like full over the ear type headphones. You don't have to wear just earbuds.
Yeah, because I left my earbuds at work, and I had the Xbox ones, and they're badass too. It's a nice headset. Just plugged it right in my phone and put it on, and it worked perfect. And I was super fucking happy about it because it sounded badass on some of the shit I was doing on there. But yeah, I don't know. I'm in closing with this, I'm a little disappointed with the visual quality of it, but I'm still gonna fuck with it and do some reading because there's probably some shit I can do to enhance it and make it better. I just, from what little I know, I haven't really been able to, I don't know, make it look the way that I thought it would. Yeah.
It seems like one of those things that once that quality of video just really gets dialed in, it's going to be awesome. Because, yeah, as long as there's still that kind of weird, that lens distortion on there, I think it's always you're always going to have the impression that something's kind of off. But once they can get that screen to just look like you're looking at a TV, like that level of quality from edge to edge, I think that's gonna take it to a whole new level. And I've never seen, I'd love to go and check out an Oculus somewhere, because I don't know if it suffers from the same thing. I mean, I don't know if that's just it's kind of a limitation of the lens you're looking through, or if that's something that they've already kind of surpassed with a different type of lens or different type of technology.
Well, I could be mistaken, but I think the Oculus itself is made for your PC, right?
Yeah, I don't know all the details of it, but yeah, it definitely, I think you have to have some pretty badass video cards, if I remember right, and then it plugs in maybe directly into those. So the PC is doing all the power, all the work, Yeah, I
scanned over, and if it's what I remember looking at, the headset itself was somewhere in the $600 to $700 range. And so if you have that in a $3,000 gaming computer, I'm sure that it looks much better than a fucking cell phone. But that's something I'm gonna actually look into that as well, because I'm obviously a little disappointed in my purchase and spending the money on it, but it's $100. Who gives a fuck?
Well, if it, and with the Oculus, if it's super badass, which it very well may be, paying $500 or $600, I mean that's half the cost of a nice TV. So and if it's something that you would use as much or as often, it may be worth the investment.
Yeah, I know the UFC was filming in 3D, but I don't know if they've actually released any content. You and I obviously are massive mixed martial arts fans, but before they even announced that, I was at Best Buy, and I was looking at one of the displays there, and there was a soccer game on this super badass TV, and it was 3D. So I put the goggles on and looked at it, and I was like, holy shit, that's fucking amazing. It looks better than real life. And so if they can do that for the UFC and make it reasonably affordable, I can't even imagine how fucking intense that would be, because it's not that you're inside the octagon with them, but it's the same camera angles and view, but it's all in 3D, and you have the goggles on, so it helps to kind of block out the rest of the world. Well, that may not necessarily be true on a TV, but if you have the VR goggles hooked in your computer, it might be a little bit more like that. And it would be intense, man, because even from far away, like, for example, when Frank Mir and Nogueira fought, and Frank Mir broke his fucking arm. Mm-hmm. Frank Mir broke his arm. And if you saw that with that kind of quality in 3D, I think it would be really intense. It might even be fucking disturbing, but I'm willing to look into that. It would be great.
See the Anderson Silva's leg, in all its glory, floating in front of you. Yeah.
Yeah. Man, there's something funny about that you mentioned that, because I was watching that live at one of our brother's house, and right as that happened, I don't remember who it was, but somebody walked in front of me, not on purpose. You know, they were getting a drink or something. We do it. Everybody does it the whole time, but right when that happened, so I technically didn't see it live. I saw it in the replay after, but it was still fucking gruesome and horrific. But
Hey, speaking of the UFC, I saw a piece of gossip yesterday. I think it was yesterday, and I did not follow up on it, but it was something to the effect of Conor McGregor is going to fight this next UFC, I guess in hopes of holding 2 belts at once, and then he might be calling it quits for a while.
Yeah, he says that. He's going to be fighting Eddie Alvarez, who just won the belt from RDA, Rafael dos Anjos. I think that's how you say his name. Brazilian guy. I have trouble with some of those names. But he says he might retire. But if you follow him, I follow him quite a bit and look at his Instagram photos and shit like that. That dude loves money. He loves clothes and being famous and talking shit. And he loves being the center of attention.
Well, the thing that was, for me, it seemed to lend a little bit of credibility is he said, or the reason given was that it's because relationships were suffering in his personal life because, you know, he's spending so much time on UFC shit that, you know, he's like fully immersed in that. So, and to me, that sounds like that's probably possible because, you know, you get to his level and like people like him and Ronda Rousey and stuff, like they start to crack after a little while because they've been pulled out of real life altogether. And now they're in this weird star world that they, you know, it's one thing for like an actor, I think sometimes or something, because they kind of move into that slowly. But these people are like overnight, you know, can't get a fucking moment of peace, can't go outside anymore. So I don't know, man. It seems like that's probably possible. So I don't know. I guess we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I read that the speculation is that him and his wife want to have a kid, which, hey, you know, good for them. They should, you know.
Yeah.
But and I could see how that could be very tough during a pregnancy because if I'm not mistaken, his wife actually is on the payroll. I don't know what she does, like paperwork and management or something like that. And so if you're going to be pregnant, you can't be fucking flying all over the world every week and, you know, going to a million press conferences and all that kind of shit. So, I mean, hey, man, good. Take a break for a little bit. Come back bigger and stronger. But I don't know. I think that he loves this shit so fucking much. I don't think we'll see him retire until he's probably in his early or mid-30s, unless he goes on some kind of massive losing streak.
It would be kind of nice just to like have some other people kind of come up through the ranks a little bit because, you know, it's been the same people for a while now. I mean, generally speaking, it'd be nice to see somebody else kind of rise to the top and do something new.
It would be. But the guy he's fighting, Eddie Alvarez, his thus far, aside from winning the belt, he's had some everybody he's fought in the UFC has been super fucking tough. And so I don't know. I mean, Conor looks bigger than him. He looks like I forget the stats, but it looks like his reach is better. And but what I'm saying is I would not count Eddie Alvarez out for 1 second. As far as I'm concerned, it's 50-50. It's up in the air right now because his thing is when he's on, he just goes for it. And he does crazy shit, and he'll fucking just keep coming at you. He'll take shots. But do you want to take a shot from Conor McGregor with his left hand? I don't know. I mean, probably not. So I don't know what's going to happen, dude.
Yeah, you know, a lot of people talk shit, but like he will knock you out, man. Like, I mean, I think that's been proven over and over and over because everybody's like, yeah, he's lucky, he's a bitch, and all this stuff. But it's like that dude can fight, man. And if he lands a punch, there's a good chance. I mean, you're gonna be in trouble.
Yeah, people. It's so funny that people say that shit that all his opponents are cherry picked for him and all this shit, and it's like, no, they're not, dude. I mean, there may have been cases where that's sort of true in the earlier part of his UFC career.
Well, you could take I mean, like somebody like Aldo is clearly a fucking awesome fighter. I mean, his last fight was amazing, dude. He looked
so true.
He looked fucking awesome. I mean, he was on point. So, I mean, and granted, you know, when he fought Conor, I have to say, I mean, there has to be some luck involved there. I mean, it was a good shot. Don't get me wrong, but I mean, I don't know that you would see that repeatedly over and over and over. You know, especially if Aldo's on his game like he was in the last fight. I think he was a little like mentally fucked up when he fought Conor. It seemed like some of Conor's bullshit had kind of gotten to him. But yeah, if he fought like he did in his last fight, I think that would be a whole different thing, man. I don't think that there's just like a one hit knockout.
Yeah, if they have a rematch, I don't see it going down, and I think it was 14 seconds. I don't see that again. And, you know, they say that there's no such thing as a lucky punch because if your intention is to punch someone in the face and it lands, then it's not luck, right? But I don't know. But I want to see that. But what I want to see before, if Conor does retire, is him versus Donald Cowboy Cerrone.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
A really great matchup. And it's interesting. People try to do MMA math and all that shit. But Nate Diaz, he fucked Cowboy up. Maybe it was like 2012. I can't remember. It was a while ago.
Yeah, it's been a while back.
But if you look at Cowboy's performances for the most part since then, other than his title shot, he's a fucking maniac, dude. Who did he fight? I forgot who the fuck he was fighting the last time when we watched him, and he hit him with that amazing combo and that head kick and all that shit. And it was fucking, in my opinion, it was more impressive than any finish that I've seen from Anderson Silva. It was the way that he did it was so fucking crazy, dude. He's such a good fucking fighter, but he does tend to crumble a little bit from the pressure when he gets in big fights, or at least it seems that way. Maybe it's just because he's fighting the best in the world whenever he happens to lose, you know?
Yeah.
But he's fucking awesome, man, and I really want to see that fight.
So, who all's on this next card? Because it's pretty good, right? The New York card? There was... I feel like I saw it, but I'm completely drawing a blank now. But it seems like the whole thing was pretty awesome.
Yeah, I think it's Okay, so obviously it's Conor and Eddie, and I think Chris Weidman's on it. Who's he fighting though? Is it Jacare Souza? Fuck, I feel ashamed that I don't remember. There's a badass card though. There's a lot of bad motherfuckers on there. It's gonna be good. But before we forget, this weekend Dan Henderson is going to be fighting Michael Bisping in their rematch, and it's for the title. And this is probably going to be Dan Henderson's retirement fight. You're familiar with Dan Henderson, obviously, the old guy that fucking beats everybody's ass. Yeah. And but if you remember back this far, when he knocked Michael Bisping out at UFC 100, and to this day, I think most people can agree it's probably the most ruthless and remembered knockout in all of mixed martial arts history. Because he hits him with this right hand, and when he gets hit with it, he's out ice cold, drops like fucking, a bag of socks. What is that? Bag of rocks, whatever. Dude's fucking out. And Dan Henderson jumps up in the air, I'm not fucking exaggerating, and comes down on this dude with another right hand that lands perfectly on his fucking face. I mean, I'm surprised that he didn't kill him or give him brain damage from it. To get hit with two of those in a row is it's terrifying. So... Dan might be able to pull it off. But again, he's 46 years old. Michael Bisping significantly younger. He just won the title. He looks better than he's ever looked. Dan still looks good. He's still tough as shit and fucks people up, but you can tell he's a little bit slower. His game hasn't changed a whole lot ever. For the most part, he's always just fucking been a tough guy that fucks people up. But I can't wait to see that shit. And actually, if you want to watch that this weekend, let me know if you have the free time, because I'm definitely watching it.
All right, yeah, we'll see what happens. I have a question I've been wanting to ask you in the MMA thing, and we haven't really talked about much. What do you think about Bellator?
Well, it's a good organization. I like it because anything that brings competition to the UFC makes the UFC have to step their game up. And they have a lot of silly fights in there. When Kimbo Slice, rest in peace, versus Ken Shamrock, it was just a total shit show. Kimbo versus Dada 5000. It's like I don't want to, but it's free, so I can't talk shit and complain. So, but at the same time,
you mean Gracie versus Shamrock? Yeah.
Oh no, no, they fought too, but Kimbo fought Shamrock.
Oh,
also.
okay. Oh, I haven't even seen that. Yeah,
and there's a lot of talented guys there too. Rory McDonald's going to Bellator.
Well, and that's kind of where I was going with that. Is I saw Rory's going over there, who's clearly an awesome fighter, and somebody else just went over there too. Who was that? It was another. I can't think of his name at the moment. There's another UFC fighter though. So it seems like that they're drawing some legitimate talent, because I mean it kind of seems like they've had some good fighters over there, but they've had like a lot of has-beens too. Just guys that are just getting older. I mean, they were maybe UFC stars at one time, and they've moved over there, but they're starting to get some legit fighters over there now, and I hope it's a good move for those guys and they don't just turn it into like a shit show and, kind of go down with the circus. But I don't know, man. Yeah, I just get a weird feeling about Bellator, and I just can't tell. It's like you're starting to get some awesome fighters, that you're getting some legitimacy, but are you going to continue to do these like weird circus fights,
I think, yeah, I don't want, it depends on the circus fight. There's some that I am interested in just because I think it's fun. But one of the things about Bellator is that while they do supposedly drug test, it's not the same as the UFC. So they fight in places sometimes that are not under the rules of the Nevada State Athletic Commission, like it was the California this and this, and the testing is not nearly the same. It's not as frequent, and so you'll see guys in there like Bobby Lashley, who was he might still be a professional wrestler, WWE, and you look at him, and dude, it's impossible with the best genetics in the world to look like him. He's a fucking monster, straight out of a comic books, muscles everywhere, fucking muscles in his eyeballs. The guy is huge, and you can tell that he's fucking juicing for sure. And kind of a terrible thing for me to say this, but I like that. I like the freak show aspect, as well as I love the UFC. I love that promotion. But I also love fucking freak shows. I want to see just ravenous monsters just fucking go at it. You know what I'm saying?
Well, speaking of monsters, whatever came out of the deal with Brock Lesnar? So was he juicing? I mean, what? I never heard what exactly he got busted with. I know he failed drug tests, but what was that?
I believe it was an estrogen blocker. So if you take a cycle of steroids, you have to, well, not always, I don't think, but generally speaking, you need to take some type of estrogen blocker when you actually get off of them, because your endocrine system, or however the fuck all that shit works, your testosterone has to naturally come back. Like, you know, when they say steroids make your balls shrink, it's true, but it's not permanent necessarily, unless you have done extensive shit and you have really, you know, severe damage to your body. But once you get off the cycle, your balls will start to activate again and produce testosterone on their own. But during that time frame, in the beginning stages, it takes a while. And if you don't take those estrogen blockers, your body will be flooded with estrogen because it's so used to having the testosterone shot into your body, and it just takes time to come back. So,
well, so how should they handle that? Because I almost feel like if you have a fight and you win, and then you are caught being on some kind of ped, and the other fighter isn't, that you should lose that win. I mean, I don't think that's really happening right now, but to me, it seems like that. It's like, if you're going to have these rules, there needs to be some consequence, because it kind of sucks if you go in and you're like playing by the rules and you lose a fight, but you know, your opponent comes out and it turns out that they've been on some kind of performance enhancing drug, and then there's really that doesn't do anything for you. Like, maybe that other person gets suspended or whatever, but you still have a loss on your record, which seems kind of like bullshit. It seems like something needs to be done in that space to fix that. I mean, because to me, that seems like a huge deterrent too. It's like, not only will you potentially get, thrown out, but you're also fuck up your record, you know? Because as far as I know, Brock's MMA record, he's still got that last win, right?
As far as I know, he does. But I think what the biggest change would be, and I don't even know if this is legal, is to take their purse, take all their earnings. He earned who knows how much for that fight.
Well, yeah, I mean, that seems like it should be like a contractual obligation. Like, if you're busted with fucking peds afterwards, then, you know, yeah, you're going to owe all that money you won back because you fucked it up. Of course, you know, I guess I can see from a business side that'd make a sense, because having Brock come back was a huge draw. But at the same time, I think you have to have some kind of standards there. It just kind of starts like taking away the heart of the competition.
Yeah, a 1 year or a 2 year suspension, if you just made $5 or $10 million, and then you also are in the WWE and whatever other merchandise that you've licensed out and you're making money from, he probably doesn't give a shit. And based off of his interviews, I don't think he cares at all. I don't think he feels any type of moral obligation to play fair or any of that shit, because he's making so much money. But his opponent, Mark Hunt, did get kind of fucked, because if Brock wasn't on steroids, I think Mark Hunt would obviously have a much, much better chance. He could still get wrestle-fucked by Brock for sure, but I don't know, man. But I felt bad for him, and I follow him on social media, Mark Hunt, and he's been very open about Brock getting caught about that shit, and he's pissed about it, and he should be. And it got to a point where they were starting a fighters union. I don't know if that got shut down or if it's still going on, but that could be a really good thing.
Well, that seems like that's one of those kind of rules where you can't pick and choose where you apply it. That's bullshit. Like, if you're going to allow the drugs, that's okay. Just allow it. I mean, it should be allowed across the board, but you can't. That's the kind of rule where you can't just pick and choose where you apply that. Like, you can't just let somebody off because you want to make more money in the promotion. I mean, if you want to be considered a legitimate sport and not just be like a shit show, you have to take the reins on that. And it seems like the UFC was taking it seriously, you know, because I mean, didn't They got the cat with, that was involved with like Lance Armstrong and all that kind of shit involved. I mean, it seems like they're taking this serious stance, but then they do things like that, and it seems to kind of undermine the whole effort.
Well, I think that Brock did receive the suspension, and the UFC, generally speaking, they have to let USADA, however you want to say it, decide what the punishment is. They have to go to a hearing, and you can actually watch most of those live on Fight Pass. And I've watched them, and I got to tell you, the people running those meetings are fucking morons. Just the most incompetent, no fucking clue what they're talking about. They're having to reference all these rule books and shit, which I'm glad they do.
Well, it's weird because like you got somebody like Nick Diaz can't fight, right? But then you have Brock Lesnar, and he comes in under these like special conditions where he doesn't have to get a drug test prior to the fight, and all this weird shit. It's like, what's the fucking point? Like, I mean, if you're gonna do it, do it. But if you're not, just wipe it out, and and everybody will just respect it more. Then everybody, if everybody can at least have the option of being on the same playing field, it seems like it makes the competition that much better.
Yeah, ultimately, I would like to see the UFC go to completely drug-free with severe penalties, but I don't know how long that's going to take. I think that it's helped a lot because you've seen a lot of people come in there and their physiques have changed big time from the way that they used to look. So,
well, I'm a big fan of all that. I'm a big fan of them, kind of taking a harsh stance on the drugs and the whole IV thing after weight cuts. Because to me, like, and I'm not a pro athlete or anything, and I've never done a weight cut, but to me, it just seems insane. It's like, just fix the fucking weight classes so that it makes sense and these guys don't have to half kill themselves to go in the ring. Because to me, that just doesn't make any sense. It's just like, move up a fucking weight class and weigh what you weigh,
Yeah, the weight cutting is one of the harder things. Like, they've put the IV ban in place, so if you get caught using an IV, they can tell. And I don't remember what the punishment is. I don't know how that works. I think you get suspended for 6 months or a year if you get caught using an IV. But even then, guys could still probably cut 10 or 15 pounds and not use the IV. I know they could easily.
Yeah.
And but there's no way to really regulate that. You can't really stop them from doing that. So that's not necessarily true. The only way that you could truly stop that is that they have to weigh in, within an hour before they have to fight or something like that. And then they wouldn't, if they cut a bunch of weight and they're trying to rehydrate in that time frame, they're going to get their fucking ass kicked.
Well, it's just weird because, like, yeah, if you weigh like 15 or 20 pounds difference between your weigh in and your fight, like, to me, that's just insane. I mean, I know why it's done, but it just seems like that's one of those things that is pretty easily fixable. It's like, just adjust the weight classes and make it correct, and then it's not that big of a deal.
Yeah, I don't know. I think that guys are still going to constantly try to cut weight, but I think the only way is they have to weigh in right before the fight. But the danger with that is people missing weight an hour before they have to go into the octagon.
Yeah,
and fucking everything up, because the way that they do it now is the actual official weigh-ins happen in the morning, if I'm not mistaken. And so whenever the athletes go on stage now, you see the big thing on stage, here comes Conor McGregor, featherweight champion. They've already rehydrated at that point because that next weigh-in it's a mock weigh-in, so they do it at night. And the guy has the card in his hand, the athletic commission guy, and so he'll say Conor McGregor weighs in at 150
Oh, no
pounds.
shit. They don't actually weigh right then? I didn't know that.
Yeah, so, but he might weigh 170 pounds or whatever, but because he's rehydrated. And so that's the way that they do it now.
So is the whole thing where they like fucking pound a Gatorade right after a show?
I don't know. I haven't noticed that people do that as much. I think that they probably...
Well, it seems like almost every weigh-in I've seen, like the fucking second they get off the scale, even before they do their like stare down or whatever, they fucking go straight to their trainer or whatever, and they pound a Gatorade like immediately.
Yeah. Well, I think that this is recent though, within the last month or two, maybe.
That
they just changed it.
Okay.
Because before it really was live right there, and Conor McGregor is one of those people that you can see. Remember that time when he weighed in and his fucking, like, it might have been the Chad Mendes
fight. It was
fight.
the Chad Mendes fight.
Yeah, and he looked crazy. He looked awesome because he looked so evil and just fucking
his
nuts.
eyes were sunken in his shit, man.
Yeah.
He was like fucking halfway between life and death.
Yeah, he looked like he just fucking crawled out of the earth or some shit, some kind of fucking ancient half-dead Viking. It was fucking awesome, but yeah. That shit's not healthy, man. And when you get dehydrated, it dehydrates your brain too.
Yeah.
And
well, I guess that's the thing for me is like, because it is clear that dehydrating is so fucking unhealthy, and then it's unhealthy for like everybody. But then you're somebody who's supposed to be doing something immensely physical and mental like the next day, or you know what I mean? So it to me, it just doesn't make any sense at all why that would continue to go on.
And I'm not trying to be corny by saying this, but I think that to a certain degree, they do need to have in the back of their mind that this is a real fucking sport now. It's massive. They sold that motherfucker for $4.2 billion.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of people training mixed martial arts now. And 20 years from now, we're going to see some crazy athletes. Like when you look at the NFL or the NBA, the level of athleticism in a lot of those players is incredible. They have perfect genetics for that sport, and they've been training their whole lives. We're going to see that in the UFC also, but it's important. And well, this isn't necessarily a fair thing to say, because it's obvious that, especially in the NFL, that a lot of those dudes are fucking juicing hard. Big as fuck, just ripped. They could destroy professional bodybuilders on stage, you know?
Yeah.
But, so they need to really get that shit under control, because you don't want kids thinking that they have to take steroids to compete. And I'm not against steroids at all in any way. Under responsible use, I mean, as far as I can tell, they've shown to make you live a longer, happier life. And, you know, if you're 70 and because you've seen examples, you'll see 170, and some of this is genetic or poor life choices, but this is a general thing to say is, you'll see 170-year-old guy, he's kind of hunched over and moving slow, and whenever he creaks down, he's like, oh, shit. And then you see another guy who's on a responsible level of steroids at 70, and he's in there fucking, you know, repping 315 pounds on the bench press. He still jogs and shit.
Well, I mean, is that a difference between taking or not taking steroids, or just like exercising or not exercising?
Well, that's also a massive part of it, obviously, but the power of steroids is real. That shit is real. It works quickly, and it's effective, and it's long lasting, because yes, once you get off of your cycle, you're going to lose some strength and a little bit of muscle mass. Not too much if you play your cards right and you stay in the gym and your diet's right and you do all the post-cycle therapy shit you're supposed to do. But the like lifting weights and shit, it increases your bone density a little bit, but also your tendon strength and all that shit, the extra muscle mass. A lot of that shit you keep for the rest of your life. Now, I'm not saying you keep the Mr. Olympia type of muscle, but if you're the kind of guy who's taken 3 or 4 cycles throughout your lifetime responsibly, you're just gonna be bigger and stronger than you ever would have been, and you're gonna keep that even if you don't work out anymore. Not all of it. I'm not saying that, but you're gonna keep more than a guy who's never done it. You know what I'm saying?
Okay.
So yeah, I don't know. It's a tough thing. I'm definitely going to get on testosterone replacement therapy probably within the next few years. And I've already looked at the growth hormone shit, the growth hormone therapy, whatever it's called.
I mean, is this because of a like a medical need, or is this as an enhancement?
Well, as an enhancement, because I want to have the highest quality of life possible for the rest of my life. And if it's increasing sex drive and muscularity and helping you naturally decrease your body fat and just look good and feel good, because even now, I haven't been able to exercise hardly at all because my arm was so fucked up. We talked about that on a previous podcast, that my arm was so fucked up that I just completely demoralized me. The truth is, I could have gone out and walked, and I could have done crunches, and there's a lot of shit that I could have done, certain yoga poses. But I just didn't want to, because my bread and butter was always just lifting weights, kind of the old school style. That's what made it fun for me and made me continue to do it for so many years. But I want to be able to get back into that and to maintain it and to continually even advance. And whenever you're taking those prescription legalized drugs, you can continue to do that well into your 50s and even your 60s, and then at some point you're going to decline, but it's a much slower decline. As long as you're responsible with it, it's the best option. I mean, like, why wouldn't you? You know what I'm saying? Yeah,
but that's something I've never ever thought about at all. Is that something? I mean, you just like go to your doctor and be like, "Hey, I want to do this." Is that how that goes down?
Yeah, you go to your primary care physician. They may refer you to someone else for both things. The TRT is they'll take your testosterone level. I think they take it multiple times. They try to find an average. And then based off of that average, they'll tell you if it's low or if you need it. And the doctor is morally obligated to not give it to you if you're within the range. You know what I'm saying? Like a healthy range.
Yeah, I guess that's what I'm asking. Is it something you can just go ask for, or do you have to have, I guess, like what they call it, like low T, right? I mean, you have to have that condition, right, before they would prescribe it?
Well, I think that's the way it's supposed to be, but I honestly don't think that's the way it works. If people want testosterone and doctors want to make money, I'm not calling doctors bad people, because the truth is it's not bad for you unless you have some kind of specific condition that makes it bad for you. It's not. And for a lot of guys, especially, you know, get in your 40s and 50s and shit, your sex drive's low, you're feeling weaker and tired all the time, but you boost your fucking testosterone back up to whenever you were 22, 18 years old, and all that shit is going to change. Rock hard boners, aggression, motivation. It helps get rid of depression. I mean, obviously that's a whole another thing, but it's just worth doing. But the human growth hormone, the last time I looked, you actually have to go to one of their clinics. And human growth hormone, it's much more difficult to test what your level should be. And so it's kind of a guessing game. And again, it's a money game too. So if you go in there and you want it, they're probably going to give it to you. But the thing is with the growth hormone is that shit's like $500 a month. So that's pretty fucking expensive. For the average person with a family and all that shit, it's not inexpensive. Whereas the TRT, I think you can get it for as low as $100 a month maybe. So that's not too bad.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, well, I'm creeping on 40. I guess I should fucking take a look at some of that stuff. Yeah, I've heard about it. I know people that are taking testosterone. I mean, for that very reason, right? Like a low T situation, but I don't really know anything about it beyond that. So yeah, that's something I'll have to kind of school up on.
Yeah, I have absolute faith in it just from everything I've read and being around sort of the bodybuilding scene and knowing people who've taken steroids and even low doses and just seeing what it does to them. And I know for sure it's legit and it fucking works. So I don't know. I don't think there's anything wrong with it. I don't think it's immoral in any way, and I'm doing it.
Well, that sounds like a plan, man. Well, hey, man, we're rocking up on an hour here, so I think we're going to go ahead and call this one. Thanks for listening to episode. We're going to call this one 10.5. And, yeah, it's been a lot of fun.
Yes, it has. And in closing, along with our tradition that we've been coming up with here, look, one of you motherfuckers needs to call this fucking number for fuck's sake. As there's going to be a point where I gotta stop telling people to call it, because now I'm starting to look desperate. Because you would enjoy it too, get a little feedback, but I'm the one that's really pushing it. It's like I'm a fucking, like I'm desperate, like I'm hungry for pussy and nobody wants to fuck me. It's like that type of thing. But anyway, one of you motherfuckers better call this goddamn number. It's 804-557-4691. Just say whatever you want. Say what's on your mind. If we're saying something that's wrong, correct us. Give us some feedback here. And to simplify that number, it's 804-JJ-SHOW-1. You can also find us on iTunes, Stitcher, and Google Play.
Oh, yeah. So one of the things I'll say, if you've been enjoying the show, something that will help it out like tremendously is just to subscribe on whatever application you're using. That's immensely helpful, and we'd appreciate it.
Yes, we would, because it seems like our streaming activity is higher than our subscription activity at this point. So we're new to this, and yeah, we're a little thirsty, maybe begging a little bit here, but fuck it, it's all good. Even if we only have one fucking listener in 10 years from now, we still like doing this, so who gives a shit, right?
Yep.
Okay, and I don't think I mentioned Twitter at Jake and John Show.
Yeah, we got the blog, jakeandjohnshow.com. That's where we kind of post things, and on the blog we'll sometimes put some extra material from the show. Like I'll put up some pictures probably on my 3D prints and shit like that. But check it out. We'd appreciate it.
Fucking A. All right, let's get out of here. We'll see you guys next week.
Take it easy.